Welcome to the Morgan Thomas Show. Thank you for joining us tonight. Morgan, Ellen, and Houston are Clemson fans and graduates. Each show, the guys will give you their authentic opinion on the biggest Clemson sports topics. You can follow them on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Just search for @The Morgan Thomas Show. You can also listen to them on 105.5 FM The Roar. Subscribe to the YouTube channel to stay up to date on all of Morgan's exclusive Clemson content he puts out every single week. Let's get this party started. Now here's Morgan Thomas.
What's up, everybody? It's Morgan Thomas back again with another live show. It's been way too long. I haven't had a live show in a couple of weeks, actually really a couple of months now, and I'm excited to get back into it and discuss all things Clemson sports and athletics with you, the Clemson fans and the Morgan Thomas Show fans and the Roar fans, everybody out there that supports the show. Thank you so much for bearing with me as we've kind of had a little bit of an off season, if you will, ourselves, a little sabbatical ourselves to kind of refresh and reset, but really not a lot of refreshing and resetting because, you know, I'm a softball coach now, and now I'm having to worry about other things. So a lot of things going on in life in general that have taken up my Thursday nights, but excited to get back into it and start the live show. This is actually after 4.5 years of doing the live show. This is actually the longest it has been not having a live show. So we've never had a break this long. And really, it all goes back to, you know, the responsibilities of being a dad and having to coach a softball team on Thursday nights. Big Al is not here with us tonight. He has a church basketball playoff game tonight, so he will be doing that tonight, and hopefully he'll be back next week. And then Mr. Houston Burnett is going to be joining us shortly. He is not here yet. He is actually putting a baby down to bed. So we have a lot of daddy duty going on right now with the Morgan Thomas Show and our host. So, but I appreciate everybody's love and support and patience with us. Hopefully you've still been interacting with us over on Twitter or Facebook or wherever while we've kind of been in this break, if you will. But I appreciate everybody getting in. I got a new streaming platform that I'm using, I'm trying out. So I know a lot of my hardcore fans probably just laugh at that because, you know, I mean, I'm going to always tinker with this live stream to see what works and what doesn't work. And I'm starting something new with a new streaming program to see if it works a little bit better. I don't know. It could all crash and burn. But if it doesn't, you know, hey, we'll see how it goes. So again, thank you for being a part of the show and getting in so far. If you haven't already, make sure you hit the like button. That is that thumbs up. You know, I see right now we have about 2 likes, it looks like, so please get in there. We have more viewers than that, so if you can get in and hit that like button for me, I'd really, really appreciate that so that the other Clemson fans, people who are searching Clemson football, Clemson baseball, Clemson basketball, just Clemson in general, anybody who's searching for those things can see us the more that you like that video or this video. So I really appreciate it. Again, we're back again. Going to try to do every Thursday night like we have always done and do that throughout the summer. And then I don't know yet, but maybe in the fall we'll get back on the radio. But I do have some adapters and attachments with my laptop to try to help connect us while we're on the radio. So hopefully, even though we're on the radio in the fall, if we are on the radio, even if we're there, you'll still be able to be a part of the show and see it and interact with us throughout the breaks and stuff like that. I know everybody liked that when we originally tried it, so I'm looking forward to trying it again. As far as the social media part of the game here, you can see down there at the bottom my Twitter account at The Morgan T Show. If you don't already follow me over there, make sure you go over there and follow me on Twitter. The YouTube channel is where we're at right now, so you should already know that link there. And then the Morgan Thomas Show, the Morgan T Show over on Instagram. I am going to try to do Instagram too. I really noticed that not just fans, but players and family members alike really like when I do the Instagram shorts and the YouTube shorts. Those little like 60-second, 30-second videos about Clemson football or Clemson recruiting or whatever it may be. I did notice that we had a lot of fans like that, and it's just something that I'm gonna have to try to schedule out appropriately and get it going. But again, thank you so much for being a part of the show. Make sure you hit that like button and follow me over on the social media accounts. Mr. Houston Burnett is supposed to be texting me here soon, so if you hear a ding on my phone, you'll know that that's Houston saying, "Hey, I'm ready to go." So I look forward to when he gives me the buzz. And by the way, he just buzzed me here. So we'll try to get Houston in. Before I do, or while I do that, I did want to give a shout out to those of you in the chat. Now I have a chat box up here. Let me see if I can push it live on the screen here. Okay, yeah. So Houston would normally be down there at the bottom, but he's not there yet. So I have the chat over here on the screen. Again, I said can't wait to get back to the live shows. I'm really looking forward to it. John Sarian gets in. Let's not talk about the future of the ACC. I'm way over my limit on that topic. Barf emoji. Wow. So he is way over his limit. He does not want to talk about the ACC realignment. Well, the funny thing is, that's the first topic up when Houston gets here. So, John, I'm sorry. I apologize. I really do. John gets in. The other John. We have two Johns. JJ and Jay here. John, and Joey all in and being a part of the show. And Houston is dinging me here, so I'm going to have to stop here in a second, or he's going to freak out and leave me by myself, which is probably not a good thing. Hopefully the sound is good. Let me know. Again, this is a new mic, new system, new everything. So let me know in the chat as well. John says this show deserves an Emmy. Well, to be honest with you, I did the graphic for Mark Childress's Clemson's Greatest Games. I did his show logo, and he won an Emmy. So I'm technically an Emmy award-winning graphic designer, even though my name's not on the award. I like to claim that. John says, I'm a softball coach now. Humble brag. Yeah, humble brag, because we are undefeated in our league. I'm just saying we possibly are the number one seed going into the playoffs next week. By the way, next week, I may not be able to make next week's show now that I think about it. But yeah, thank you so much for getting in and being a part of the show. And then my dad's there. Happy birthday, Dad. I hope you had a good day. Hope you got to have your favorite meal. And, hopefully you enjoyed Margaritaville. I don't think I can play Margaritaville on YouTube because I'll probably get kicked off, but I appreciate it. Let me text Houston here real quick and tell him that I got him, and then I'll pull up Skype because we're going to pull him in through Skype, and I'll have to get him in a video. I'll have to get the video going as we're going. But I do have discussions. I do have topics about the ACC and the. I'm trying to think of the word here. The merit-based, incentive program that they're going to be doing. Do I agree with it or not? We'll talk about that. How does Houston feel about it? We will talk about that. We're going to talk about Clemson Baseball, as you know. We enjoy Clemson Baseball, and they're doing really well right now. And then I believe, we'll talk about some Clemson recruiting. I think Houston wants to do that as well. And then I'll talk some Clemson softball coming up this weekend. I'm looking forward to it. And then PJ Hall, big news coming out of Clemson basketball that PJ Hall will be returning to the Tigers. We're kind of worried about that. He went to that combine with the NBA and kind of worried about what he would do or not. But we'll try to bring in Houston here to be a part of the show. And see if when he gets in, we'll see if he can't, if we can't jump in and add him in here. But again, thank you so much for being a part of the show. If you haven't already gotten in and hit the like button, please do. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, emotional outbursts, please let me know, because I would love to talk about it and be part of the show with you. Now, I did want to tell you something that is new this year, new this season with us. And let me pull up the screen here. I'm going to push this off of the chat into this new screen here. DraftKings League. Now, Alan and I I'll tell you this. I wish Alan was here so we could talk about it. But the DraftKings League is something that I have found that Alan and I were trying to pay for our own platform to do a college football related fantasy football league. And we just had a bunch of different websites that we looked at that we really didn't like, and we even tried to build our own, and that didn't work out. And then a couple of weeks ago, I was just messing around with DraftKings, and they have a league option. And so if you are a member of DraftKings, I'm not talking about the sports book because I don't think that you can do that in South Carolina. But what I wanted to talk about was the Daily Fantasy League. So we do have a league. It should be in the YouTube description. If you go down there, I'm thinking, here's what I'm thinking this year. You get in. We already have about 4 or 5 people in the league right now. You get in, be a part of the league. I'm going to do a bunch of free games where we'll have contests of, pick'em contests. We'll have the salary cap contest, all the things you can do in DraftKings. I will try to make some throughout all of college football season, and maybe even do some Atlanta Braves ones or just general baseball ones, maybe some Formula One ones. If you know that if you know anything about Formula One, I like Formula One, so thinking about doing some of those. And then when college football season comes around, we'll maybe even try to throw in some money games as well. Some $1 entries or something just general, just something fun for the group to do. Just fans of the show. So in the description, you'll be able to see it. The Morgan Thomas Show's League. Go check it out. Sign up. Again, I'm going to have free options for the most part. So you don't have to spend any money if you don't want to spend any money. But I thought I would tell you about that as well. And then something else that's kind of fun and new is our membership program. We have the 110% club membership. If you noticed, we do now offer membership for the website. I am not doing any kind of and now Houston's like telling me, come on, let me on the show, please. He's telling me this now. But Houston, I promise you, if you're in the lobby, if you can hear me, I see you. You look beautiful. I'll be there in a second. So 110% club membership is the exclusive loyalty membership program. I'm not doing sponsorships. I didn't do them last year. I don't want to do them this year. I'd just rather us have a good time and not have to add in sponsors, because I can go get sponsors. Believe me or not, you've seen it. I can go get sponsors. That's an easy thing for me. People like the show. We really care about the show. We have great content. We care about our content, but I, would prefer not to have a bunch of sponsors like I have before in the past. So I thought about doing this membership where it's 110% club. It's all voluntary. You don't have to do it, but you get exclusive loyalty badges. You get every month you get to earn up to a new badge, which that's our logo there, that tiger with the sunglasses. You start out with one with no color, black and white, and then you get one with color, and then you get a bronze, a silver, a gold, and then you get what I call the holographic one. I know you could kind of say that's rainbow, but it's really holographic. So I hope you think that that's a holographic one there once you reach a certain amount of months of membership. So kind of cool there. And then you get exclusive chat emojis in the chat. Lightning with CJ Spiller, Hair Time with Trevor Lawrence, Touchdown with Dabo Sweeney, and 110% with The Rock. Now, I made all of these. I made all the badges. I made all the emojis. You can use them if you become a member. And then the more we get, the more chat emojis I can add in there. So, I hope you enjoy it. We do actually, I know Houston hasn't had a chance to see this yet, but we actually already have one member who's been a member for quite some time. Anderson Patrick is a member. I want to give you a shout out because that's one of the things you get is exclusive member shout outs. And another thing is you get the members only live chat, and you get the members only emojis and badges as well in the chat. So, hey, now that I'm done with that, let me see if I can pull in the chat. I'm going to pull the chat back up. And let me see if I can pull in Mr. Houston Burnett as he is now part of the show. So let me copy over. Now, Houston, just bear with me here. You just bear, all right? You bear down. I got to get your badge in here. I got to get your title. And once we have this set up once, it shouldn't happen again. But anyways, so Houston, let's see. Let's refresh you. Let's see if you're there. Not there yet. Let's see. All right, hold on. All right, I've got my Skype up. Let me. All right, you must be logged in as a guest, so I will apply the guest. He may be logged in as a guest. We'll see if we can pull him on. There he is. There he is. I will pull him in to the live screen now. Let's see if he's there. Houston, are you there? Can you hear us? Well, I cannot hear you yet. I heard you. I mean, I hear you moving your lips. Let's see if I can get. Let's see if I can get the sound going. You know what? The sound's coming through my microphone. Let me do it now. Houston, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I think the chat can hear you. We can all hear you now. So welcome back, buddy. It's been quite some time since you've been a part of the show. And can I just say, can I just say it? I miss you, man.
Well, it's been a long winter and spring, man. So I'm glad to get back on. The last little text there wasn't for you or wasn't directed towards you. It was sharing out your link to this new inside scoop, inside Clemson talk, whatever ecosystem group. So I shared that out right now. That's kind of the new thing that's been going on. But yeah, I'm glad to be back. Glad to be able to talk. I'm doing this from the dining room tonight just because my office where I normally do it is backed up to my infant daughter's room, and I don't want to chance that. She's sleeping well, so I want to keep it that way.
I hear you. Yeah, we don't want to wake up the baby girl. That would be a no-go for both of us for sure. Everybody is already giving you a shout out saying hello, welcome back. We're so glad to see you. Maybe you can see the screen. I don't know. I'm thinking you can. So hopefully you can see the chat there, so you'll be able to follow along with us. Houston, there's a lot of things going on in the Clemson Twitterverse and the Clemson media right now. One of those things is the ACC, and let me bring up the topics here real quick. I don't know if you're actually on that screen since really I just added you to this screen. I was in full preparation, Houston, to have you and Alan tonight, and obviously that has, for better or worse, crashed and burned. So I don't have Alan here with me, but it's just me and you, which is good. So let me pull you into, you're not in there yet, but I will fix that as we speak. It only take me a few seconds. Here we go. All right. So I'm going to pull up the first topic and push this live. We're going to get out of the chat and pull up the first topic. You see the screen there, Houston, with the ACC. Okay, so I saw this over on CBS Sports, the ACC's new incentive model. Now, we talked about this. Now, I know John Sarian, he's already got on to me in the chat, and he said, Morgan, I really don't want to talk about this. Now, I know that there's a lot of Clemson fans out there that are basically done with this kind of topic, but it is really the off season. So we have to think about things that we are going to talk about that are the most important right now. And one of those things is that revenue distribution model that the ACC is going to start, not this year. We know that, right? They're not going to start it this year, but they're going to incentivize postseason for their members of the universities or of the conference. So starting in 2024 and 2025, there'll be success incentives. And this was approved by the ACC Board of Directors this week. And it'll potentially open up $10 million more for those teams that make it into the postseason. Now, right now, I think I said this to Faxon on the radio this morning. My first thought is, sounds like a Band-Aid to me. Houston, when you think about your first thoughts on this, do you feel like sounds like a Band-Aid to you, or what are you thinking?
So first off, and I meant to say this at the beginning, to both you and Faxon, happy birthday to both of you.
My dad's birthday, though. It's my dad's.
Oh, okay. Well, I saw something about birthday, so happy birthday to him as well. And so it's a Band-Aid. I mean, there's no other way to put it. It just kind of feels like, and this exact same scenario happened in the Big 12, where you had uneven revenue distribution. It really made a lot of people mad. And then you see what happened. The ultimate downfall, A&M, Colorado, Missouri leave. and then now you have Texas and Oklahoma leaving. And I mean, I think that was the minimum option that this band of seven, magnificent seven, was looking for in this. But ultimately, I think there's a lot of teams, at least in that southern portion of the ACC, that are looking for ways out, because it's a pretty big chunk of revenue. And even for basketball, look, North Carolina's got a vested interest in this too, because football kind of helps them out with basketball as well. Basketball can't carry everything, but they got to keep up with the Joneses. And you've seen in the last few years the SEC and the Big Ten really pushing to bolster their brands in basketball. So it's going to affect everybody in the ACC. Is there going to be a change in conference in the next few years? Probably not. But this is we're at the point now where Thanos has the time stone and Doctor Strange says we're in the end game now. That's kind of where we're at.
Oh my goodness. Bringing out the Avengers, Thanos, and oh man, and Infinity Stones. It's about to be over with for the ACC, or at least the way we've seen it. I'll be honest with you. I don't see it as it being completely destroyed, because I think the ACC is actually in a very good spot because everybody's stuck. And that's my thing, is that, yeah, you're not in the situation of the Pac-12. In my opinion, the Pac-12 is just about done. They don't have ESPN anymore, and they're entertaining USA Network, which is decent. That's wrestling, that's WWE, Monday Night Raw, that's the Premier League, as you know. But the thing is, it's still USA. It's cable. It's not your primetime networks. It's not your local networks. So you do have to have that package that includes it. Whereas the other channels you'll be able to get it with ABC, with CBS and things like that. NBC, Fox. So it's not as good, but I will tell you that the ACC is basically in a position where it's like, go ahead, and to me, I feel like they're saying, go ahead and try something. There's nothing you can do, because if there was something you can do, I feel like that can do would have happened. I don't think that there is something that you can do. I really, honestly, Houston, I hate to be a naysayer here, but as a Clemson fan, I'm actually one of those Clemson fans that says to myself, I don't think that Clemson is the bright and shiny diamond that everybody thinks they are to the SEC. The SEC already has a team in South Carolina. They already have a team in Florida. So they don't need to penetrate that market. But it would be nice to have a brand like Florida State and Clemson. Believe me, Florida State and Clemson are huge brands when it comes to college football, college baseball, even college basketball. And now we're seeing in college softball, track and field, soccer, huge brands. Don't get me wrong. But they already have teams in there, and they're not in the position where they have to add anything. So they're in a position where maybe they want Clemson, but there's no sense of urgency to me. I don't see any sense of urgency on the SEC side of things. Now, on the flip side, I see a sense of urgency on the Big Ten side. I think the Big Ten would say, hey, I want to go into the South. I want to get into that market. They've already said they want to get into the West Coast market and be more of a global or a national brand. I feel like that they may be interested in getting to a southern market. We'll see. I don't know. That's just my speculation there. But I do feel like the ACC is in a good spot as a conference because they've kind of got you by the golden handcuffs. There's nothing you can really do. You're stuck right now. What they decided to do was put a wet Band-Aid on it. Will it last for 5 or 6 years? Maybe so. Maybe the schools will then get frustrated again and decide to pony up the money. But that's a lot of money. If you're only losing, and Houston, you've said this to me many times, if you're only down a couple of $1 million, it's not that big of a disparity. I think where they're really nervous is if the other schools around them, especially their rivals, are $50 million ahead of them. That's where it gets scary. Now, every year, South Carolina gets $1 million here, more or there. That's not a big deal. So if Clemson keeps going to the postseason and keeps getting that extra incentive, then, I think maybe the gap's not that bad. Maybe they can make it through. If you think about it, you divide, 150 by 13 years, and there's only a $1 million gap between you and your nearest rivals, then maybe it's better to just tough it out. But if that gap gets really big and it looks like to the point where it's better to just buy out, that's, I think, where the ACC is going to start to tumble. But again, the ACC has announced their incentive model, their revenue-based model, where the high-achieving programs are going to get additional money, upwards to $10 million or more to distribute. Everybody's going to get their normal revenue, and then they're going to get more, those teams that do best in the postseason, not just football postseason, but basketball postseason as well. Jim Phillips, the commissioner, says he's been exploring all options to enhance the membership institutions. Here's another part of this, Houston. How much does this hurt teams that have never been in it and are going to continue to not be in it? I mean, if I'm a team like a Georgia Tech or a Boston College or a Virginia, maybe Virginia could make it because of basketball. But if I'm these teams, I mean, Wake Forest says they want to be in it. Wake Forest is really pushing to get into the postseason. But, there's plenty of teams that are kind of not really doing very good on either basketball or football. What happens to those teams? I mean, look at Louisville, for example. They're going through a downtime right now. Maybe they'll come back. Maybe it'll be fluctuating here and there. But majority of the teams are not going to make it to the postseason in football, especially in the ACC. Majority of the teams may be able to make it in the ACC. They might be majority or at least half of the teams make it into the ACC or the NCAA basketball tournament, but it'd still be difficult, right? So what about that bottom part of the teams? Most of the leagues are top heavy. Even in the SEC, they don't want to admit it, but most of these leagues are top heavy. So what happens to those smaller schools? Do they just get slowly bled out to where everybody else gets the money? I mean, it doesn't seem very fair to me for a team like Rutgers to get $75 million no matter what their performance is, and then Pittsburgh get less money because they're not performing well only because they're in the ACC.
Yeah, and I think the way that I look at this is like there's tiers, right? There's an upper tier that it's going to be unaffected, like the Clemson and Florida State. I feel like Miami, even though they're not back, like they're not, what they were in the early 2000s, they still are a national brand. People still watch them. If they make it to the ACC championship game in the next 3 or 4 years, and that would probably get them in a 12-team playoff, they'll be fine. I'm almost to the point with North Carolina. North Carolina has that type of brand. Matt Brown's kind of brought them back. If they make it to the playoff in a 12-team playoff once every 5 years, they'll be okay. The middle teams, the Virginia Techs, the Louisvilles, the NC States of the world, that's got to be frustrating because you're trying to aspire to get to that level of Clemson and Florida State and Miami, especially like a North Carolina. I can see where there would be some contempt for teams like that for somebody like North Carolina or Miami, especially when you're carrying the weight. But it's a weird situation. The conference it's the most unique of all of them because you have football schools, but you also have several that can kind of hold their own in basketball, right? North Carolina, Virginia, Duke, not really perennial football powers, but they are elite basketball schools. And then you also have other schools like Miami and Virginia Tech and Louisville, who are also very good. Louisville's, a very good program. The schools that are the most at risk are probably Georgia Tech and Boston College, because even though they're in large markets, Georgia Tech is not even the biggest fan base in their own city. You're getting out recruited by Georgia and Clemson, and literally any Southern team is coming into your town and just picking people out. And it's squeezed them out of their own market. So they're not as marketable as what they used to be. And then with Boston, it's nice. It's a cool campus, cool trip up to Boston every year. But if you ask Boston fans who they cheer for in college football, they're generally going to look at you in a blank stare or tell you Notre Dame. And so those are the two types of schools. I think at least with Wake Forest at least has a proud heritage in both football and basketball and baseball to make some moves. So Wake Forest could have a Sweet 16 year come out of nowhere, or play for an ACC title if Clemson's down and Florida State's down. We've seen that happen a couple of times. I think Wake Forest is going to be frustrated with the end result for the conference, but I don't think revenue is going to be. They're going to be relatively unaffected. I think they're going to be in that middle tier with like everybody who's kind of frustrated.
Yeah, I do feel like that there's a lot of schools out there that are going to be very frustrated with where they're at right now. And as it continues to keep going, it's just going to continue to get worse for those teams, especially at the bottom of the conference. There was another article that just recently came out on CBSSports.com, and that was let me bring it up here real quick. So CBSSports.com. And it was regarding the Big 12. As Dennis Dodd came out earlier today, inside the Big 12's ironclad grant of rights contract that helped keep the ACC together amid turbulence. How a seemingly unbreakable document has kept two leagues largely together during realignment. And some of the bullet points here for you. Okay, Houston, you ready for this? Let's talk through them. The Big 12 and the ACC grant of rights contracts are, quote, ironclad and have helped keep the two conferences stable during realignment. The contracts are based on a landmark Supreme Court case, let me speak correctly here, that allows conferences to sue schools that leave early. So they could be sued if they leave early, and they could demand that money that we've been talking about, that 100 and I think what, 120, 150 million dollars. Also, the contracts, I didn't know this before, contracts are incorporated in the state of Delaware, which is a business-friendly state, and makes it very difficult for anyone that's not a business or to break it to challenge it in court. So there's another thing that really kind of makes it ACC friendly. The contracts have been successful in preventing the schools in the Big 12 and the ACC from leaving, but they did also create some pretty bad resentment among the schools who are feeling that they now are being held back. The revenue model is hopefully going to achieve this, bridge that gap. The contracts the contract for the Big 12 was signed in 2012 and runs through 2025. The ACC grant of rights was signed in 2016 and runs through 2036. Wow. So a 20-year deal there when they originally signed it. Now, I was trying to explain this to my wife while we were driving home. At the time, Houston, I don't think anybody really felt like it was a bad deal. Clemson had just lost, I believe, Maryland. Is that right? Or someone, they were losing teams. And so they were worried to do whatever they could to make it ironclad. But, I mean, looking back, it would have been much better to make it a 10-year deal than a 20-year deal.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, the resentment side of that is something that I think that's going to play out in one way or another. I don't know about the Big 12. I can't speak for that. I feel like the Big 12 is going to set themselves up to be the like catch-all, the safety net for programs that are at least decent brands. So if nuclear winter happens and people start moving to different conferences, the Big 12 is going to be there to grab the Louisvilles and the NC States or whoever doesn't go or however it's set up. But you're right. And that's why I'm saying, even though they can't find anything, you don't think that 8 teams, at least in this conference, are a little bit ill with what's going on. I wouldn't be surprised we're going to have to wait. But you're going to start to hear these rumblings again at the beginning of next decade, and then boom, especially if there's a major gap. I don't know. I think this kind of made a lot of people mad, and I think that growing sentiment's going to boil over soon. But I don't even know how that's going to look. College football is going to look completely different in a decade. So projecting what's going to happen in 2036, I can't tell you what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, again, I think this is a Band-Aid. If anything you could call it, I think you could call it a wet Band-Aid, because I don't think it's going to stick for very long. It'll just get them over for the next couple of years, and then they'll be probably back at the table saying, hey, where's our money? Hey, our rivals are doing better than us financially, and we're having to fight our way to a championship just to keep up, and we're still not keeping up. I think it's just going to continue to get larger and larger. But I do feel like that, again, going back to, Clemson and Florida State should just go to the SEC. In my opinion, we really haven't seen a ton of public acknowledgement that the SEC is like clamoring for Clemson right now.
Right now, no, but I guarantee you if the talks intensify to the Big Ten trying to encroach their territory, I have a hard time believing that the SEC would allow them to snatch up some major brands, especially in the Carolinas and Florida. Georgia Tech, whatever, Boston College, sure, but, the pitch for some of these schools to the SEC would be, you're not just getting these football programs, you're getting programs that can compete every season. Right, Florida, between Clemson, Florida State, North Carolina, and Miami, they're going to be getting something. And then, I don't know how many teams are going to come along, but pitch different things. If you wanted to bring Duke along, you're going to have the biggest basketball rivalry along with your biggest football rivalry, right? So right now, there is no urgency. You're right. The SEC isn't urgent. They're fine. They're making money. But to go back to your point, this isn't about market share anymore. It's about brand capturing as many brands as you can. Kind of like Disney Plus. Like Disney went out and got Star Wars and Marvel and all this. And if the time comes where, hey, Grand Rights is going to be up, let's see if we can make a volley to get the biggest names in the ACC, Clemson, Florida State, UNC, whoever. Let's do it, and let's see how it goes. But again, I don't know what's going to look like in 10 years. Something could go crazy, and something completely different could happen. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's still hard to say. I think it gets them by for now, but we'll see. We'll see where it goes. Thank you for getting into the chat, everybody that's already in there and participating. Young Pablo gets in and says, if you think about it, it incentivizes teams at the bottom to perform better to make more money than they would finishing at the top for of the conference. Now them actually performing better is a different story. Performing better to make more money, yes, I would agree. They already have kind of incentives to coaches and stuff like that to make it to the postseason, to make more money. Teams do get money when they make it to bowl games, when they make it to the playoffs. So there is already kind of that there. This is going to be a little bit more, but I feel like that there's teams that just are just going to year in and year out not be able to compete no matter what they do. So I feel like those teams are the ones that are going to eventually get bled out, in my opinion. They're going to eventually get exhausted from trying to have to keep up and still not making it, because they're already, even with it, when we thought it was even, they've been struggling, like you mentioned with Georgia Tech, not even being able to recruit out of Atlanta. Clemson goes in there and takes kids from Atlanta. Alabama does. Georgia, Florida, people go in there all the time. Tennessee, get guys from the state of Georgia that Georgia Tech is not going to get. So they're not going to be able to hang with that in the long term. Especially, like, to me, the smaller schools with the smaller alumni bases aren't going to be able to hang, especially when you have so many different things pulling at you with what you need to be successful. Houston, I've complained about this a lot. Hey, pay money for my ticket. Okay, I did that. Hey, you paid for your ticket, but you didn't pay for the best seat in the house. You got to pay more for that. Okay, I did that. Now I have a great seat. Okay, well, what about your parking? You got to have a better parking. Okay, pay for that. Oh, wait a minute. You forgot to pay your alumni association. You got to pay the alumni association. You remember your school. Do that. Okay, now you got that. Oh, wait a minute. You forgot to pay your collective. You need to pay your collective that as well. Oh, wait a minute. You need to go to these events and pay for those things. And eventually the fan base is going to get exhausted with no returns on the football field. Those fan bases are going to, in my opinion, fall away. The school's going to make less money. The fan bases are going to give less money. And before you know it, that's it for them. They're going to just need to leave the conference anyways and go to a lower division, in my opinion, because really it's the haves and the have-nots, and it's just going to get worse. The gap's going to get worse. And if you're Clemson, you don't want to be one of those teams that the gap is getting worse on. You know what I mean?
No, yeah, I agree.
So let's continue the discussion here. I appreciate everybody getting in and being a part of the show. Again, I don't know how many people are live right now. It's been a while since we've had a live show, so I appreciate you getting in. If you haven't already, make sure you hit the like button to like the video so that other Clemson fans can be a part of it. Houston, is there any one-off topic before we get to the next topic that you had been thinking about this week?
Well, I mean, if I know what topic 2 is, I think it's going to be something that would be well in line if it deals with something on the diamond.
Yeah, well, I'll bring up the topics here real quick, and let's push it live here. Let me see if I can change it real quick for us. Yeah, we'll pull this. We'll pull this up here. So we'll pull this up here. Okay, so Clemson possibly. Can you see that, Houston?
Oh yeah, I can see it.
So I hope you like that. You like that picture of him?
Oh yeah,
looking good there. So Clemson could possibly be, in my opinion, more than likely going to be a national seed in college baseball. Huge news because Houston literally, I mean, my goodness, Houston, beginning of the season, you and I talked about this. Clemson was projected to be the finish fifth in the division. So where they are now to where they were is amazing, in my opinion. Would you agree?
Oh yeah. I mean, I kept saying that if they can get to the Notre Dame series, we're gonna find out then. And you know what? Things started to happen right around that Coastal Carolina game before the Notre Dame series, and that's where things started. This is a okay. Let's do it. Okay. Yeah, let's do it.
All right, everybody, we're back again. It's the Morgan Thomas Show along with Mr. Houston Burnett and the chat. I know we got froze up there for a second. My computer was kind of, having a good old time, I guess, over here, just really messing up and freezing up on me. But again, I told you we started a new streaming software, and I'm still working out the kinks, but we'll get it figured out. Houston, welcome back in. Thanks for being a part of the show and being patient with the new program as we have it. I'll push live the screen that we were discussing, which is Clemson soon to be or projected to be a national. What? Hold on, I'm listening to myself on YouTube, so bear with me here. So Clemson projected to be a national seed with college baseball, something that we really didn't expect because the Tigers were basically picked to be fifth in the division, and now are we seriously talking about they're one of the best 8 teams in the country?
Oh, 100%, yeah. This has been one of the best turnarounds. This is almost a Auburn 2013 kind of turnaround if we're trying to equate things back to college football. This season has been unreal as far as what has happened and what Clemson's been able to accomplish in just such a short time. They're absolutely one of the best 8 teams in the nation, and I think you're going to see that coming up over the next few days. If they're able to win tomorrow against Boston College, we know now they're going to probably play North Carolina in the semifinals, a team that they swept already. Now that's going to be a tough game, but if you're able to beat North Carolina, you're going to probably play Wake Forest, a team that even though they were swept by Wake Forest at the beginning of the year, that kind of started this whole trend upward. They gave Wake Forest 2 games that were fits. Wake Forest really struggled with Clemson in those final 2 games, game 2 and game 3. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think that Clemson is red hot right now, but there's still room to grow, crazily enough.
I'm looking at the article recently that came out about Clemson. They came off of a win was it last night? Caden Grice had a great game where he hit a grand slam against Virginia Tech to defeat them in the ACC tournament. Now, I know it was relatively not a game for Virginia Tech to win, but I discussed this morning about how baseball players are ultra competitive. You and I talked about this in a chat a couple of weeks ago. When I watch these college baseball games, every single team and player wants to destroy that team that they're playing against, whether they have a chance or not, or whether it matters or not in the scorebook or in the league or whatever. And you could see that with Virginia Tech, and everybody says, well, the game didn't matter. It was meaningless. Virginia Tech wasn't going to be able to go on anyways. Well, when they were up 5-3 at one time, it didn't seem that way. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like Clemson was going to be in a dogfight. And once the ship got rolling, I believe in the 5th inning or 6th inning last night, it was game over. I think it was partly because they were looking for momentum, and they got it. They wanted to keep this truck rolling, and they were able to do that and then some last night.
Now, you're a baseball guy a lot more than me, but what does it mean for this team to win their 40th game of the season? I know it is in the postseason, but I was looking at the teams that are out there. There's not but about 2 handful of teams, maybe 15 or less, that even won 40 games. So how big is it for the Clemson Tiger team to win 40 games and for it to be back its first season doing that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a key that is really underscored as far as just kind of the unwritten rules of like Power 5 successful seasons. You win 40 games and you're in the ACC or SEC or Big 12 or Pac-12, you've had a good year. You've probably played some tough teams in the non-con. You've had a tough schedule to play in one of those conferences. So to win 40 games, no matter how many ways that you've done it, and in Clemson's way, they're highly ranked in the RPI, which means they've played very tough competition. Yeah, it's a great year. It's a fantastic year. If I recall correctly, I don't believe Monty won 40 in his first game in the regular season. They ended up winning the ACC title and then went on a run through the regional and ended up winning 40 games. But winning in the regular season 39 and really having a chance to win that 40th and a couple other times before the run happened, getting that 40th win last night really shows they're a good team. They deserve to be where they're at. They deserve to be a host at bare minimum, and that they're not a pushover. You're going to have to pack your lunch when you come in and play Clemson.
Yeah, I'm thinking, it'll be an exciting ACC tournament. Now Clemson is in a game where if they lose, they're out, which Faxton and I were talking about this morning about how it kind of stinks to think that they just come off a game that didn't matter. And really, I mean, as far as like winning or losing, and now they come into a game that they really have to win, along with the teams like Wake Forest who have to play Pitt. And I mean, Pitt could beat them. I mean, I will say this: I'm not the biggest fan of a one win and moving on situation in baseball or softball. They go all year playing 3-game series over the weekend, and then when it comes to the playoffs, it's like, okay, 1 game and done. I mean, as you know, any team can win any game, especially depending on how that ball and those laces go, right? So do you like that it's kind of a single elimination in this case?
Well, I don't like the format that they have. I think anybody that is a baseball fan, and especially an ACC baseball fan, is going to tell you the same thing, that the format's so junky. It's so convoluted to have 12 teams and brackets of 3, and if everybody finishes 1-1, then the highest team is going to go. That it's not. You can just look at the conference that's closest to you in location in the SEC, and I kind of like their format better. You have a 1-game winner take all. Winner moves on into the double elimination round on Tuesday. So your top 4 teams, they get a bye. kind of like a basketball tournament, however they do that. And then the others have one game that they get into the double elimination, and then from there it's double elimination. I think that's fine. You have an element that's something different, something that you have to base your, you have to get there. Like if South Carolina had lost to Georgia, there would have been implications. There's always implications with a team that's a fringe team like that on that first day. Then getting into that double elimination format that everybody's used to. I think that's the best of all worlds when it comes to these larger conferences.
Now, most of the baseball outlets out there are starting to agree that Clemson is a national seed and starting to predict Clemson will be there. Top 10 in the RPI, top 5, really, a top 10 in the strength of schedule, with a possibility of going deep into the ACC tournament. I think D1 Baseball recent projection has them as a number 6 national seed hosting Campbell, Oregon, and Army, and has them up there as one of the best teams in the country. Is there any doubt that that's where they're at in your mind?
Oh yeah, I think at bare minimum they're hosting, but I think it would shock me if they're not in the top 8. I think that they've been so hot against good teams, mind you. This isn't like some other teams that make their hay beating bad teams and occasionally one good team. Clemson had to beat some good teams to get where they're at. I definitely think that they're worthy of a national seed. I definitely think that if something like that happens where it's a Campbell or an Oregon, yeah, you're going to have to lace them up against somebody like Campbell. But at the same time, I think it's their best shot to make it to a super regional in over a decade. You want to see something like that. And I can tell you, if you get into that situation where you're playing in a winner's bracket game on Saturday night, Doug Kingsmore is going to be it's going to be a very fervent environment.
Now, when I'm looking at the top 10 of the RPI right now, you got Wake Forest, Kentucky, Arkansas, LSU, Florida, South Carolina. So ACC 1, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 SEC teams. And then Clemson is the 7th team as an ACC team. And then you get Vanderbilt, SEC, Virginia, ACC, and then at the very end in the 10 is Indiana State, which is I believe the Missouri Valley. So then you have below that Alabama. So, Alabama's right up there. It's basically without Indiana State, an all ACC, SEC, but heavy SEC top 10, top 11 RPI there. Is that shocking to you? Is that kind of how it normally goes? And does that show you that maybe Clemson can hang with those top teams? They may have to face Wake Forest in the ACC tournament. They may have to face Virginia in the ACC tournament. So are those teams that Clemson can hang with?
Well, one, we're not going to face Virginia. They got dominated today by North Carolina. So it'll be North Carolina taking that spot. Wake Forest is probably the most complete team right now in college baseball. That's not to say they're unbeatable, but from top to bottom, they've got the best hitting lineup, best pitchers. They are full of talent. So we'll see. Like I said, when Clemson was at their lowest point, they were able to hang with Wake Forest. Outside of the Friday night game, Wake Forest dominated that Friday night game. But Saturday and Sunday, Clemson really put up a fight. But with the SEC schools, it's kind of funny to think about that. They absolutely got the talent to beat anybody any day. Florida, LSU, Arkansas, Vanderbilt, Kentucky, they got talent for days. But they also have flaws, and if you catch them on the wrong day, you can beat them. Florida, LSU, and Arkansas especially have issues in their bullpen. They've got a bunch of talent on the front end with their starters. You think about the pitcher for LSU. I think his last name is Skeens or Skynes or whatever. Florida's got the same thing. Arkansas's got a great pitcher. But you start to look at that bullpen ERA, it's not too dissimilar to Clemson, and Clemson's struggle at the beginning of the year especially. Vanderbilt's a different animal. They can hit well. They're a little bit down as far as pitching this year too as a whole, but they're still very good. I think Clemson, this is a good shot for Clemson to make a deep run this year. I'm not gonna put an end point yet, because college baseball, it's a lot different than football or basketball or whatever. You can see a Coastal Carolina or somebody, if they get hot at the end of the year, they can win it all. So Clemson's got the talent to be there. They want to keep that momentum going. And so if they can, win tomorrow and Saturday and give Wake a fight on Sunday, potentially Wake, then yeah, you can see a Clemson team that makes a real splash in the postseason.
I mean, you're looking at what you just said. Virginia loses today 10-2 in the ACC Baseball Championship Tournament there. North Carolina was the 7th seed, and they took down the Virginia Cavaliers in a team that went 45-12 overall. And was one of the best teams in the country, or is one of the best teams in the country. So again, it kind of goes back to anything can happen especially when you have that win or go home kind of games, especially in baseball. So we will see how it goes. Now it looks like more comments from around the league. Wake Forest just absolutely thumps Pittsburgh. Looks like what was the score there? 10-2 as well. So. Another big time win. Both North Carolina teams beat their opponents 10-2 heading into the next round of ACC tournament. Now Clemson will play Boston College early morning, actually, Houston, 11 a.m. Friday. So it'll be something I'll get to see. I have tomorrow off. So it'll be something I'll get to look forward to. Hopefully wake up a little late, get some rest, and then get to watch Boston College. Now, Clemson, I believe, has not swept Boston College, but won the series. So, what's the challenge for Clemson baseball to get over the hump and get past this team?
Well, it's the same thing that you saw with Virginia Tech. It's just bringing what you've had. Virginia Tech, you won the series, you swept them. It's hard to beat a team 4 times. In a year. It's hard to beat a team 3 times in a year. Boston College is a talented team. So I think part of the good strategy that they were able to implement on Tuesday or Wednesday, was they did a bullpen night. They started Joe Allen. They went with Rocco Reed, BJ Bailey, Jackson Lindley got some pitches in there. You had several guys get in there that weren't your normal starters. So it saved Darden, Gordon, and Grice for the weekend, and the way that it's structured, Gordon's going to pitch tomorrow. So the challenge is Gordon is one of the guys that Boston College has already faced. I can't recall if he won or lost his start. He might have lost. So there's a challenge right there. Can you have a better outing than you had last time, and figure out a way to get into the semifinals? So it's just bringing what you brought last 13 some odd games and see what you can do.
Clemson Carson gets in on the chat, says, I was there for the whole weekend against UNC last week, and it was electric, especially on Friday night with Blake Wright's walk-off. Go Tigers gets in and says, if Clemson beats Boston College tomorrow, they will play the Tar Heels again.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on the chance of is it going to be difficult for Clemson to beat North Carolina if they have to face them again?
Yeah. Once again, same thing. Hard to beat a team 4 times. North Carolina is not a slouch team. They're probably looking at being a 2 seed in a regional. Could really make some noise. North Carolina is always a problem, and you're playing up in Durham, so it's going to be probably a heavier UNC crowd. So we'll see what happens. I would think that either Darden or Grice is going to pitch that night, and those two have been absolute studs to start out with. So you hope that they bring that, but you're going to have to be locked in when you play UNC if you make it there.
Well, I appreciate you getting in and being a part of this discussion. So we talked about Clemson and the ACC and the realignment and the new model. We talked about Clemson baseball. And going into that, one thing I did want to bring up is Clemson softball. I don't have a graphic about it specifically, but Clemson softball is going to play an Oklahoma Sooner team that is going to be a formidable challenge for them. Best team in the country, maybe the best team softball has ever had in a college, competitive environment. Oklahoma can do it all. They have hitters up and down their lineup. They have 3 pitchers that are, right on par and with girls like Valerie Cagle. So, they have a team that is just absolutely stacked, and Clemson is trying to build towards a team like that and becoming one of those powerhouses. But it'll be very difficult for Clemson to hang if they can. Now, here's my thing. We've seen this year, Houston, that Clemson struggles to figure out the other team's pitcher when it comes to softball. Valerie Cagle can keep you in a game for about 5 innings, but the best teams like Duke, like Florida State, like Virginia Tech, eventually, like Tennessee, eventually they figure you out as the time goes on. They figure out Valerie, and they may not figure her out for a home run. Auburn figured her out for a couple home runs, but sometimes, depending on how she's pitching, they could hit a couple of deep balls off of her. But a lot of times you see just dink and dunk hits that happen against her late in a game that Clemson just can't even seem to get those going. And even if they're playable balls, sometimes Clemson's infield bobbles the ball. So there's some things that need to be cleaned up on Clemson's defense, I believe. Even though they've gotten a lot better than last year. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to beat them up about that because they have gotten a lot better than last year. But they still make mistakes here and there in fielding that cause, when with softball, the base paths are a lot shorter. The distances are a lot shorter. So the mistakes that you make are amplified because, you get a dink and dunk or a little bit of a bobbled throw, and all of a sudden you're on third base, And that's the way softball is. That's what makes it so exciting for me to watch. But you have to be very careful with what happens after a ball is hit and when it's put into play. So when I watch Valerie Cagle, again, she's one of the best players in the country, no doubt about it. Pitcher and batter, right? But they cannot survive with what they did against Florida State, which is 8 runners in scoring position not brought in. And that was the entire series, right? They're not able to bring these batters in. They're struggling to play competitive or put competitive swings in on strikes, right? And that's what John Rittman keeps saying. Hey, when those strikes come your way, try to make it a competitive at bat, make it a competitive swing. Don't just let it go right by you watching it all the time to go sit back down. And stay off the bad pitches, but the good pitches, go after them and be aggressive and have some confidence up there at the plate. We'll see what they can do. Now, the problem is Oklahoma is the nation's leader in runs per game going into the NCAA tournament, and they had over 12 runs per game in their regional. So the game I watched against Cal Houston, every other batter hit a home run. And I just don't know if Clemson can hang with a team like that. I would love to see them do so. Maybe it's just another learning experience like they had last year against Oklahoma State. But I do feel like Clemson has a good handful of girls. They don't have a roster up and down that scares you every at bat like Oklahoma does.
Well, I hate to be the let's have some perspective guy with this, but if there's any team on Clemson's campus that needs some perspective, it's the softball team, because they literally started their program in 2020. And the fact that we're talking about the Tigers have hosted 2 regionals. We're in, at one point this year looked at for hosting the super regional. Their RPI kind of kept them out of that. And now we're talking about them going on the road playing number 1 team and how they don't have a scary lineup. It's like, well, I kind of understand why they don't have a scary lineup at this point. It's because the program's 4 years old. And so it's just a natural progression of getting there. Clemson has shown that they're serious about building their brand within softball. It's just going to take time. I think that even if Clemson gets blown out 35-0 in both games, which that could happen. Oklahoma's really good. It's not a bad thing. Clemson has built a lot in a little amount of time, and I don't think people realize how amazing that is. So regardless of what happens, I think people need to be like, okay, instead of looking at this like a downer that Clemson couldn't advance to that next phase, You've seen this team go to 2 super regionals in 2 years and a regional to boot. They have not missed the postseason in seasons where they've had a postseason. So think about that. That's it's kind of unheard of, but nobody's really talking about that. I'm going to be happy either way. I think that I didn't really have expectations of what to expect when this came about. So to know that in a 4-year span, you've seen a regional and 2 super regionals, and they're nationally competitive and they're a national brand. So now you have an idea of where they need to go. You got 3 teams in the ACC you're looking up at: Virginia Tech, Duke, and Florida State. So over time, you need to figure out ways to creep in, because I know they can get over the hump with Virginia Tech and Duke, right? That needs to be your focus first. Getting over the hump with Virginia Tech and Duke, then we'll focus on Florida State. And once you're able to do that, you can probably have more aspiring goals to do things in Oklahoma City.
I appreciate your perspective on it. I do feel like that Clemson should be very thankful. Fans should be very thankful about where they're at. It's no small feat to go from having no program at all to, again, hosting twice 2 regionals and getting to the super regionals and being able to move on. We'll see what they can do this weekend. Game Friday, 5/26 at 2 p.m. and then Saturday, May 27th at 1 p.m. Will Clemson be able? I think it'll be a win if they can get a win. In my opinion, but we'll see what they can do in those 2 games. Going to be on ESPN, the first game on Friday at 2 p.m. and then on Saturday at 1 p.m. So just tomorrow, really, I'm excited for it. I really am. Looking forward to it. Another thing that I'm really excited about that I wanted to get your opinion on was a big time pickup for the Clemson basketball team and Brad Brownell, and that is P.J. Hall returning to play for the Clemson Tigers yet again after going to the combine, working out. We kind of got scared a little bit about what he may or may not do, but he comes out today and decides to release news that this morning at 10:30 a.m. that he will be returning to Clemson. He says, quote, "I'm thrilled." Brad Brownell says, quote, "I'm thrilled that PJ has decided to return to Clemson. I'm proud of how he performed at the NBA Combine, gaining valuable experience. He's one of the best players in our league, and I'm counting on him and others to help lead a very talented group this season." Clemson finished last year 23-10, going 14-6 overall in the ACC. He scored 17.6 points per game. Not only was he a big-time leader, big-time rebounder with 6.6 rebounds per game, and big-time defensive guy with 21 blocks on the season. He's a guy that can beat you down low, Houston. He can shoot a 3 here and there. He is a great rebounder, and he's a team leader. I think it can't be understated how great this is. He has over almost 2,000 likes on Twitter for coming back and announcing that he will be on the team next year. I think it's a huge pickup for Brad Brownell to have his superstar return.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big deal to have him back. Now, what are they going to do? Like, that's always going to be my question until the season starts is, you got talent on this team. I don't think there's going to be a sentiment this year that, oh, we finished 3rd place, we were really close, or this, that, or the other. It's like, no, you got talent. You got the talent to go there. You got a lot of guys that can shoot. You got the guy from Syracuse, the guy from Air Force, excuse me, the guy from NC State. You got talent all around. So it doesn't need to just be, oh, we made it to the tournament. It needs to be, oh, we made it to the tournament and we won a couple games, because they've got the talent to do that. I'm grateful PJ's back. He's been the linchpin of this team for 2 years now. If you were going to do anything this year, you needed to have PJ Hall involved with that. Get him back for at least one more. You just got to see where the chips fall this year. And I'm hoping having him back alongside these transfers really translates into something down the stretch.
Yeah, I think it'll be great to see PJ Hall back. I think it's huge for Clemson to get a leader back in. Like I said, somebody who is good on the offensive boards, defensive boards, and blocking. Facts and Childress recently came out and put in that. Let me put up see if I can put up this share here. I'm gonna see if I can't throw it on the screen. if possible. He put out a um, a post about the potential roster for next season, and I think it's pretty neat. I'll push it live here so you can see it. So he puts in there projected 2023-2024 men's basketball starting five: point guard Joe Girard, shooting guard Chase Hunter. So Chase Hunter potentially moving back to that two-guard position and not having to be the point guard. Let's just start there. How important is that for him to not have to be the point guard going into next year?
I think it's big that he's in his more natural position. He's better as a driver and scorer than a distributor. I think that he could definitely be more of the natural fit at that shooting guard position. Joe Girard being the point is probably better suited. I'm just curious if I'm looking down at the strong forward, power forward combo there of Clark and Shefflin. I wonder if there is if this guy from Air Force, I can't pronounce his last name, or I got to learn how to pronounce it. But my curiosity there is, would you see all guys that have transferred in, your Air Force guy being at strong forward, Jack Clark being power forward, he can fill that role as well. So seeing Clark, Air Force guy, Hunter, Girard, and PJ Hall in there, and then seeing Shefflin as a six-man. I don't know if that would be something that would be in the cards given his injury, but we'll see.
Yeah, I'm under the impression that he's not going to play this year. I could be wrong, but I'm under the impression that he's not going to be able to play because of that. I think it was a back injury.
Well, they said it hadn't been ruled out. He said it's not ruled out yet. He's had surgery. They're going to see. He may miss some time, but I don't know. I've heard mixed reports that he could be potentially in the mix for next year. We don't know yet.
So I'll give you some highlights here of Joe Girard. It was number 11 for Syracuse. He was a guard, 6'1", 190, senior from Glen Falls, New York, Glen Falls High School. Girard was one of 20 players named to the Jerry West Award watch list prior to the season. The award recognizes the top shooting guard in college basketball. The seniors team high 19 points, led the way in the season opener against Lehigh. Girard had 14 points against Colgate, 21 points including 5 three-pointers when the Orange defeated Northeastern. He scored a career high 31 points in the Empire Classic overtime victory against Richmond. He dropped 20 points against Notre Dame, 18 points in part of 4 three-pointers against Oakland, 6 assists against the Grizzlies, 15 points, 4 rebounds against Georgetown, 16 points against Monmouth. He shot perfect 6 for 6 from the foul line against Cornell. 16 points against Pittsburgh, 24 points against Boston College, 28 points against Louisville, 19 points against Virginia, and 24 points against Virginia Tech, 21 points against Miami. So 28 points against Georgia Tech. I mean, this guy has consistently seen, now he did only get 11 points against Clemson. So, I guess maybe there's a little bit better defense there on the, I know Clemson and Brad Brownell is always known for their defense. So maybe he got locked down there. But for the most part in ACC play, the guy was able to get in a ton of three-pointers and was able to get 18 points or more majority of the time in ACC play. And he even got up as high as 36, as we talked about. So he seems like a guy that can shoot the three. Seems like a guy is a good guy that can get you a good amount of assists as well. So just from that snapshot, I haven't seen much of him, but we already know what Chase Hunter can do. He can handle the point guard position. So, and he can do the shooting guard as well. Joe Girard, I think really both of those guys can complement each other and force defenses not to pick on one guy because you got to worry about both.
Yeah, I mean, depending on how this guy is rehab back, I think Joe Girard is going to be somebody that you're going to want a lot of minutes out of this year. you still got some guys that you're bringing up from this. You had a lot of freshmen play last year, which is a good thing. I think it's even better that you have several of these guys that they're going to be behind, you know, such as like, you know, Clark and Gerard, where you may not have to rely on these growing sophomores a little bit more. So I think in the end, this lineup, you got a lot of talent there. You got a lot of you know, a little bit more depth. So I'm looking for things to happen this year.
So is Jack Clark? Is he the? He's the guy that comes from NC State then?
Yes.
So Clemson picks up Gerard as a transfer, Clark as a transfer, and then they're gonna keep Hunter, Shefflin, and Hall. Let me see if I can get you some stats on Jack Clark here. Get a little bio on him from NC State. This guy, 6'8", 200-pound graduate student from Cheltenham. Does that sound right?
No idea.
Averaged 12 points per game at LaSalle. They didn't. I guess they haven't updated it here. But 12 points per game, 13 points per game in conference play, 11 rebounds, 18 points. Let's see. Another guy that's typical, 15, 16 points. This guy gets more rebounds than Gerard, of course. He's up into the 10, 11, 12 rebounds per game. So he's a guy that could be a guy who, you know, can get you a decent amount of minutes and points, but looks like a guy that's going to be up there to get you a ton of rebounds as well. So maybe another compliment there for the rest of those big men, Shefflin, Clark, and Hall. But when I look at that, that's not necessarily the biggest lineup, would you say?
No, there are concerns regarding, outside of PJ Hall, there are concerns defensively with these guys. And maybe Chase Hunter Wise, but the transfers, we don't know yet. And so they're not necessarily the biggest lineup. You know, PJ is what, 6'10". You know, he's not necessarily the biggest big in the world. That's not sliding his performance. It's just kind of what it is. And so there are some concerns with size and what they would do defensively. So that's definitely something that you need to, you know, keep tabs on, especially once you get into conference play next year.
Now, Go Tigers in the chat says, for Clemson, well, he says, with the talent on this team, we should compete for an ACC championship, in his opinion. Also says that he hopes, or I hope, that Hemingway plays better and stays healthy. We could really use his shooting. I think that's true. You know, you missed him a couple of games last season, and you really missed out on his ability to really threaten the other team from three-point land. If you throw him in the mix, then that really can allow you to kind of stretch those teams and force them to go out and guard the three-pointer.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. It's always a wait and see when it comes to the defensive play, especially in a team like this where you're going to have several transfers coming in on this team. So we don't know if they're going to gel, whatever is going to happen. Like, it's just, you're going to be a wait and see until you get a couple games into the season to see how they're really playing with each other. Sure, I got a few. My battery's getting low, but I think I can do one more topic if it's the right amount of time.
All right. I don't think anybody heard me when I said that, but I'm just gonna see if you have time. Coming up, or starting right now, it's Boston versus Miami in the NBA Eastern Conference Finals. Game 5, Miami leads 3-1. I know this is not Clemson related, but I'm curious what you think. Game 1, the Miami Heat beat them 123 to 116. Game 2, 111 to 105. Game 3, 128 to 102. And then finally, Boston had a pulse in the last game in Miami. Well, at least, you know, for one more game, because then they'll come back to Miami in Game 6 if they win this game. But they won 116 to 99. It seemed like Boston figured something out. In your opinion, Do you think Boston has a chance? I mean, they're supposed to be the higher seed. They're supposed to be the better team, 57-25 overall, winning 32-9 overall at home, way better than the number 8 seed Miami Heat. But Jimmy Butler and Miami Heat have been on a tear in this postseason. Do you think that the Celtics can be the first team ever out of 150 teams to come back from a 3-0 deficit in the Eastern Conference Finals?
I think they'll win tonight, but I have no idea. You're going to walk into a Hornets nest in Game 6 in Miami. I don't see it. Miami, I see them winning tonight. It wouldn't surprise me if Miami won either, but I can see Boston winning tonight and then Miami putting it all together to win in Game 6. I think it's going to be a Denver-Miami final.
Well, I appreciate you getting in and talking some NBA basketball there at the very end. Hey, if you missed anything, we had every part of a show that we love. We talked about the conference realignment and the redistribution of wealth in the ACC. We talked about Clemson Baseball. We had technical difficulties and a freezing moment that we were able to rebound from. We discussed Clemson basketball and PJ Hall coming back. We discussed Clemson softball as well. And then we wrapped it all up with a little bit of NBA discussion. I'm going to end this stream and go watch those NBA finals because I don't really watch the NBA, Houston, but I do watch the playoffs. I think it's a lot more fun when there's a lot on the line. When it comes to hockey, when it comes to baseball, when it comes to basketball, the playoffs are way more exciting to watch. So I just wait until now. I'm pulling for the Heat to go ahead and get their win and go play the Nuggets. And overall, I'm pulling for the Nuggets to win it all. So that's who I got. But again, thank you for being a part of the show and joining us in. If you weren't part of it, let me bring up one thing here real quick. Let me see if I have it here. I may have it, or it may have disappeared on me. Let me see if I have well, either way, it looks like it's not there right now. But what I will tell you is that, again, in the description, we have our DraftKings League. Go ahead and join it now. Get in, be a part of it. We're going to have free contests all college football season. We're going to have paid contests all college football season. And if you haven't seen it already, there's a membership site. We're not doing sponsors this year. We didn't do sponsors last year. We're giving you the opportunity for 99 cents a month, less than $1 a month. You can be a member where you get exclusive badges, you get shout outs during the show, you get members only chat, and you get exclusive badges and emojis to use in the chat. So again, be thinking about that throughout this season. We appreciate everybody's love and support. If you don't want to support monetarily, we're okay with that too. Just hit the like button and we would appreciate it. And as always, Tiger fans, we'll see you at the top of the hill.